During the summer break of my junior year of high school, I worked as a McDonald's employee. I was 17 and pretty naive at the time. I desperately needed money to add to my college fund. My parents did not plan it out so well, so there was a really high chance I wouldn't go to college if I didn't get a job. I was mostly busy during the whole day. I was a day person and wasn't very productive at night. During the day, I was either hanging out with friends, working out, studying, or learning and practicing for coding competitions to add to my portfolio. And usually at night, I wasn't doing anything. The most productive thing at night was just some plain old written homework. Because of the reasons mentioned above, and because of the fact that I did not sleep a lot at night, approximately about 3 to 4 hours, I decided to kill two birds with one stone and take a night shift job. That way, I could get paid for doing absolutely zero mental work and get my homework done. I applied at a lot of places, but I have to admit, I was a big fan of fast food, so fast food jobs were on the top of my priority list. So when I got a job at a McDonald's, it was a no-brainer for me. The McDonald's was located a bit on the outskirts of town, probably for travelers. But I didn't mind as long as was getting paid, and it being isolated also meant there would be comparatively fewer customers, so I might even get a chance to squeeze in another hour of sleep. I got into my dad's car and went to the store. It looked pretty dreary. The outside walls had a bit if mold on them. I entered the small building to be greeted by a middle-aged man standing behind the counter. He greeted me with a smile and a nod of acknowledgement. He took me to the drive-through booth, where I would be receiving orders, and explained how everything worked: the ice cream machines, the soft drink dispensers, and the fryers. After he had given a quick tour of the building, he brought me back to the counter, took a deep breath, and said, "Hey kid, do you believe in ghosts and stuff?" "No, but why do you ask?" "Zrania, I know I'm gonna sound absolutely insane for this, but you'll have to follow some rules while working here. Now, I know all of them sound unbelievable, but trust me, they are as real as it gets. They could even cost you your life." I looked at him, puzzled. "What are the rules? And has anyone been hurt or something?" "Zrania." He pulled out his phone. He had multiple photos of teenagers who formerly worked here, but apparently ignored the rules and have gone missing since. "Why don't you go to the cops?" "Swing?" I asked him interrogatively. "Because no one believes me," he said, his voice getting shaky. "They conduct a full area search. They think I am insane." He almost burst into tears, but composed himself and begged me to follow the rules and take them seriously. I said that I would, and his face lit up. He handed me the list of rules, thanked me, and left. I reluctantly smoothed out the piece of paper and started reading. List of rules for to survive a night. Rule 1. Keep the lights on the drive-through counter, where you'll hand customer the food, on at all times, with an exception to Rule 5. There is a creature just lurking nearby, waiting for the lights to go out and letting your guard down. Rule 2. There are security cameras next to the counter table. Always check who is in the drive-through. If the person ordering is in a black Range Rover Evoque with tinted windows, do not speak a word to him. He will stop bothering you if you ignore his angry threats and drive away in a few minutes. If you speak to him, however, he is going to break into your booth and attack you like a wild animal. God knows what entity he is that can mimic a human voice so perfectly. Rule 3. If someone orders fries, tell them you're all out, because you do not want to open a bag of frozen fries at midnight. Trust me, the scent will attract unwanted attention and it'll end well for no one. Rule 4. If you hear your name being called from behind you, stop everything you're doing, lay down and close your eyes. You might feel teeth on your limbs or giant talons rubbing against your head or torso, but please do not move. It'll be gone after you hear a demonic giggling. Rule 5. If you see a 5-year-old girl with no eyes standing in the driveway looking directly at the camera, lock all the doors and windows and close all the lights. You might hear screaming, roaring, and screeching from the outside. Once it's been a minute since the sounds have ceased, turn the lights back on and continue with your job. Rule 6. If you hear people in the main dining area, do not check that out. No one is there, since the place will be locked. It's just another distraction by the creature lurking nearby. Rule 7. If the lights go out by themselves, chop off a toe or a finger and place it on the drive-through counter and duck behind it. You'll hear low growls followed by a quick snatching sound. Get up once the lights are back and check the counter. If your finger toe is missing, congratulations, you're gonna live to see another day. If the finger toe is still there, just pray to God it kills you quickly and doesn't take its time cherishing your screams. Rule 8. It is advised you do not sleep, because then you can miss your name being called, or the 5-year-old girl, or the laughing and talking sounds of people in the dining area, which can cost you your life. I was puzzled. If this was a joke, it was a terrible one, I thought to myself, just before noticing movement in one of the bushes in the drive-thru. You know how you think you can be brave and fight through the fear during a fight or flight situation? Well, nope. Your body actually seizes up when facing the fear head-on without a warning. Somewhere in my heart, I believed that this list was fake or an elaborate prank, but I didn't want to take any chances. So I decided to comply to the rules. For the first hour of the night, literally nothing paranormal happened. I didn't even get a customer till then. This will be easy. Flipping through the cameras every 20 minutes, I almost didn't notice the little girl peeking through a bush. Her eye sockets were devoid of eyes. I looked at them, and they seemed void of any human emotion. They were evil in a way. The more I looked in them, the more I wanted to cry. I was so fixated, I almost forgot to switch the lights off. But remembered Rule 5. I got under the counter after switching off the lights. I heard something slam against the left wall of the booth, like something big had lashed out and tried to break through the wall. Then I heard quick footsteps, followed by the cries of a little girl. The cries kept on increasing in intensity, to the point where I thought I would actually go deaf. I covered my ears, but could obviously still hear her cries. The cries ceased within 30 seconds, and I heard a low growl. The growl was followed by the sounds of roaring and slashing of meat. The sounds were so disgusting that I threw up all over the floor. After collecting myself mentally, then got up and turned the lights back on. I cleaned the puke and contemplated what I had just been through. Before I was even finished thinking about this, I heard people talking. The noise was very distant. I couldn't make out any words, just laughs, giggles, and overlapping voices. The night was eerily silent, so I could hear every little thing that went bump in the night. I was just about to go check it out when I remembered some rules regarding this specific event. I reread the list and found it. It was Rule 6. I had to just ignore it, and it'd go away. And so I did. I put on my earphones and started with some schoolwork. Almost 1 hour passed, nothing happened. When finally a customer came through the drive-thru, I served them and was happy that there were actually people starting to come now. I saw another car pulling up. I was really happy now. I wasn't along in this hellhole any longer. My good mood was immediately put off when I saw it was a black Range Rover with tinted windows. I didn't speak to the angry man on the other side. He screamed his order, then said, "I know you're in there. Are you deaf, motherfucker?" Zrania. I didn't reply and kept my cool. 10 minutes later, it was gone. My shift is over. Now I am sitting here typing this, contemplating if this job is really worth $200 a day or not. I wanted to quit, but the guy begged me not to, and that he would double my pay, since I was so good at it. But I don't want to risk my life again. The title really says it all. I mean, it's not exactly odd to go to a McDonald's at 3 a.m. I'm sure we've all been there, hungry in the middle of the night, wanting something, and a burger seems the greatest option, especially when it's cheap. That was my case. A few months back, I had horrible pregnancy cravings, and my boyfriend was at work and wasn't able to stop and get me one. But they were so bad, I ended up deciding it'd be best if I just got up, walked the half-mile to get there. So I did. I grabbed my phone and a zip-up and made way for the McDonald's down the street. I didn't feel a need to grab any keys or a knife. All that mattered was this craving to go away. And something that would have normally taken me 5 or 10 minutes took me 30. I couldn't help but feel I was being followed. It was just this subtle feeling, like the chills. My body would jolt when I got these feelings. I've had it all my life, and nothing really ever explained it, other than chills. And getting into my later years in life, I got them less and less, so this time I was listening. Bodies send out signals, we should listen to them, that type of thing. So I did, and boy was I glad. I turned around and saw one of my neighbors, who has recently moved in, trailing behind. I've never had a bad encounter with him before. His name is Ed, and he is the most average person you'd ever see. Boring to look, not in a mean way. There just isn't anything recognizable about him. Nothing to note. He doesn't give off bad vibes, but staring at him in the darkness of the night doesn't give off good vibes either. I was really beating myself up for not carrying a weapon with me now. And because of this story, I carry everywhere I go, including the fact that my child, unborn at the time, is really young, and I am a defenseless petite woman. So I did the next best thing and tried making conversation. Tired or hungry? I laughed. He didn't respond at first. Then he grunted. Haha, just restless? Sometimes sleep is hard to come across these days. He sounded oddly normal. Tell me about it. This one is kicking around a lot, I said, gesturing towards my belly. I didn't receive a response, so I could only assume he was gone. But it was only moments later I felt arms wrap around me and pull me backwards. My flight or fight response kicked in, and I started thrashing to get free. Everything in my mind faded, and the only thing that really mattered was getting safely out of this situation, because I didn't want my child harmed in any way. I scratched at his hands. They were pressing my chest down with major force, and to no avail, he didn't let go. I threw my arms around, not sure what to do with them, before I started reaching for his head. I jammed my thumb into his eyeball, and finally, he let go. I didn't think twice before running the rest of the way to the McDonald's. It was my best bet. Once I got there, the teenager behind the counter looked at me like I was a ghost. After sobbing for 15 minutes, I got him to lend me his phone. I dialed for the police, and eventually, they showed up. Leave it to the police department to even remotely care about the well-being of someone else. I explained everything that happened, earning looks for the police officers. They made me take them to where I was attacked. The blood trail led into the woods. No way in hell was I going in there. My boyfriend showed up and took me home. Flash forward to weeks later, and I mean months. The police came to me with some news. Ed, whose actually name was Ed, was wanted in another country for murder, serial, and when he fled to America, he had murdered 9 more people. They found him deep in the woods of Alaska, in a cabin, missing one eye. Back in 1994, my brother Josh was working as an on-site technician for a large phone company. His role was twofold. Firstly, to set up new lines, and secondly, to find the problem with and fix broken landlines. He was based in a small town, but most of his time was spent catering to farmers in the nearby areas. The problems were usually hard to find, but easy to fix. Sometimes, Josh had to walk half a mile up and down dusty roads to find where a particular cable was broken, and the repair didn't even take 10 minutes. One of those calls, in August of 1994, led him to a rather large family-owned farm. A girl called Casey had called in from a neighbor's house, saying that the family's phone was dead. Josh drove out the next day. I don't know how it's done now, but back then, Josh told me that phone cables are buried together with other cables, sometimes even together with piping, in hollow tubes of either hard plastic or cement. In areas where that wasn't possible, the cables were usually placed on high poles. But in rural areas, where not all houses were connected to the electric grid, it was sometimes more cost-effective to lead the wire, covered in a thick plastic coating, simply along a road. When Josh was called out to a farm, those ground lead cables were usually at fault. A machinery drove over the cable, an animal ripped it, or maybe some bored kid cut through it. Either way, those jobs kept Josh employed, and so he didn't mind slowly driving along country roads, stopping every few meters to stop potential breaks. The McDonald farm was an easy case. Already while on the route to their house, Josh spotted the ripped cable. It was a clean cut, and the separated ends had been pulled apart for several meters. Josh figures it was likely from a plow or similar device, a simple accident, likely done by the farm owners themselves. He had all the right tools, and Josh fixed the cable break within half an hour. Then he drove to the farm to tell the family the good news and make sure that the problem was fixed. He arrived at the McDonald farm around 4 p.m. The heavy wooden gate was open, and so Josh drove his van straight inside to drive up to the house. When he turned into the gate, Josh saw a cow lying on the driveway. He was used to that. He honked the horn to shoo the cow away. Usually that worked, but this particular all-brown cow refused to move. Josh slowed down, drove closer, and tried the horn again, longer this time. Still, the cow didn't move. There was no way around the cow, other than to drive into a ditch next to the driveway, and Josh didn't want to risk breaking the car. Finally, just a few steps away from the cow, he stopped and let the motor roar. When the animal still didn't react, Josh carefully, and well aware that a diseased cow might attack him without warning, got out of the car. He grabbed his toolbox from the back, then slowly walked around the car to pass the animal from behind. Only then, 2 steps in front of his car, did he notice the puddle of dark brown, dried blood around the animal. The animal was lying with its head on the floor and towards the direction that Josh had come from. He saw a large, gaping cut through the brown throat and 3 long slits through the enlarged stomach. Josh was on edge, but not seriously worried. Occasionally farmers have to put pregnant cows down when the calf refuses to be born. And to get rid of a cow's body is not easy, and it can take days for the specialist to arrive. Josh figured the McDonald family or the veterinarian had tried to save the calf by cutting open the mother's body, like a cow's C-section, just without the anesthesia that humans would receive. Likely they killed the mother first, by cutting her throat. Then, when the animal sank on the floor, they cut the body open. From the looks of it, Josh concluded, they hadn't succeeded. The bulge in the cow's body was clearly visible, the calf without a doubt still inside. The skin had been placed back into its original position. Only the cuts and a small gap between skin flabs was still visible. Josh resisted the urge to look inside the animal's body. Holding his nose, Josh walked around the cow and further toward the farm. The driveway was long. To his right was a pasture with several cows. Some were standing, but most were lying on the grass, probably chewing the cud. To Josh's left was a thick cornfield that made him feel slightly uneasy. Josh reached the farmhouse about 5 minutes later. He called out and rang the doorbell, but there was no response. He knocked against the wooden door and called out again. He thought they might be out, trying to organize the removal of the cow's body in the driveway. To make sure that they weren't just not hearing him, Josh turned to the right and circled the house. He glanced through the windows while he passed them, first the kitchen, then a living room window, but everything inside seemed calm and dark. At this point, before he saw it, Josh told me, he began to feel uneasy. There was nothing unusual except the dead, pregnant cow. But still he felt a tingling in his legs and back, like a warning of bad news. Then he turned the corner. Josh only saw the scene for a few seconds, but he says he still remembers it today in vivid detail. Like a photograph burned into his brain. A large dog lay on the back porch. His body was slit open lengthwise and the organs and intestine were pulled out. Right next to the dog's body laid the bodies of an older couple. The man's body was naked, his head separated from the body and placed between his leg. 2 large cuts went through his body, one from the throat to the groin, and one from left to right through the abdomen. His intestines were pulled out and placed to the left of the body, near the dog. The woman's body was dressed, but the clothes were cut open. A deep cut went through her throat and a large sideways cut through her abdomen. She too was gutted. But what Josh remembers the most, the thing he still has nightmares about, are the bloody spots where her breasts should have been. There were 2 straight cuts, as if someone had carefully sliced the breasts off her body. Both the man and the woman's eyes and mouth were sewn shut with a thick, dark thread. The man's lips were split in several places, as if he had forcefully opened his mouth, but the thread had been stronger than his lips. Josh threw his toolbox on the floor and ran. He turned back around the corner, ran back onto the driveway towards the dead cow. While running, he saw that some of the cows on the pasture were looking at him, following his movement, but most of them were still on the floor. Most of them still hadn't moved. Around one of them, he noticed a large, dark puddle on the grass. Josh ran so fast that he twice nearly fell over stones or potholes. He stumbled toward the cow, curved to the left around the body, and ran around the back of his car to get to the driver's seat. Just before he reached the driver's door, Josh stopped dead in his tracks. The cow was still there, but the flap of skin was pushed further open. The bulge was gone. Inside the cow's abdomen, where Josh had thought was a calf, was now just a large, gaping hole. Panicked, Josh ripped the car door open. He screamed when he felt the thick, brown-red liquid on the door handle. Still, he pulled the door open, looked inside the car, and jumped on the driver's seat. He felt a large, squishy ball exploding when his feet pressed on the accelerator. He looked down to his feet to see what it was, and just in that moment noticed movement in the cornfield to his left. He slammed the key in the ignition, turned it, heard the motor howl, threw the car in reverse, and hammered his foot through the squishy mass back on the accelerator. The movement in the cornfield came closer. The car moved backwards and swerved. Josh was barely able to avoid driving into the ditch at the side of the driveway. He slowed down to regain control over the car, saw the corn being pushed aside, then pushed again hard on the accelerator. The car sped backwards, through the wooden gates and back on the country road. Back in the driveway, just when he was out of the driveway and backing onto the road, Josh saw a figure emerging out of the cornfield, a few steps away from the cow. He swears the figure looked like a teenage girl with dark hair, covered from head to toes in dried blood. Then, Josh sped off. Josh walked into the police station with the cow's heart still stuck around his right foot. The newspaper article said that the McDonald's didn't have any children.